Guys, I just want to say a huge thanks on behalf of the Veterans Channel to Emile Ghessen for joining me today. For those of you that don't know, Emile is a documentary filmmaker, and he's been involved in a huge project over the last sort of 3 years at his own expense to go out to northern Iraq and join the Peshmerga and witness what the volunteers from the many nations around the globe are doing in support of their fight against ISIS. So Emile, I just want to say a huge thanks for you, sharing this time with me today and the audience within the Veterans Channel. And I'd love you to tell in your own words, about this unique story and how you became involved in it. And what was the sort of moment when you decided that you needed to go and make a documentary for this? So Emile, please shoot away.
So it started, I left the Corps, the Royal Marines in 2012, and as most Marines do, they mainly go into the security industry thinking it's an easy stepping stone and you're going to earn loads of money with driving BMWs. A contract I was working on fell, so it was going through hard times, but then work was coming in slowly. But I wasn't content and happy with doing security work. So it was a night out in Exmouth where I met a guy who was a sailor, who he was out with loads of Marines, and they were like, listen to this guy, he wants to go out to Iraq and Syria to go fight ISIS. So I was quite intrigued to find out why a sailor wanted to go fight ISIS. So I met him the next day for a drink. He explained why he was going out there. So there's a group of volunteers that are going out to fight ISIS as an entity from Canada, Australia, Britain and America. So I was okay, it's quite interesting why these guys. My background is I'm half Arabic, so my father's from Syria, my family is still in Syria. So I was like, okay, well, I've got the skills and expertise to go fight ISIS. I didn't feel the need to, even though my family are there. And then a week later I was reading the news in bed, hungover, as most blokes are on a Saturday morning, and I discovered that Jihadi John, Mohammed Denwazi, went to the same school as me in London, so he was a few years younger than me. But I thought, I've got an Arab background, he's Arabic background as well, so what enticed him to become this notorious killer? So I thought, okay, all these stars aligned. So I sent an email to Channel 5. I said, I've got this brilliant idea, and they said, yeah, crack on, let us know how you get on. So went from there, went online. I then spoke to several production companies. One of them got back to me and said, we love the idea. So they sent a cameraman to speak to me. Lastminute.com, he pulled out of going because he was endangered, they wouldn't insure him. So I literally just bit the bullet, booked a flight and went out there. And that's how my journey started. So moving around through taxis in the back of ambulances, networking through social media.
So, very interestingly, like you said, is that, sort of this developed from a conversation that you overheard within a pub, and then you generated that interest in yourself to go and make this documentary. How did you fund that?
So I didn't have a clue about documentaries, I didn't know how to film them, so I spent a lot of time watching documentaries and learning the camera angles and everything else. And so I was like, I don't have any money, how am I going to do this? So I just used a credit card. So I went and bought a camera off eBay, read the instructions on how to use it. Ideally it was point and shoot, so it was quite easy to use. And then from there, just funded all my trips. So I've done 6 trips in total. So generally it's all been self-funded, and it's just been coming home, been working, finding odd jobs here and there. I've done jobs working, cleaning the caravans, working on routes, building sites as a labourer, going from the Marines as a sergeant, coming outside and then getting told what to do on a building site, just so I can earn £50 a day, just so I can fund it for my next project. So one of my trips was helped by GoFundMe, where people donated, so I got £2,000 from that, but generally across the board it's cost me about 20 grand, I would say, in total. And that's just outlay without me being paid, so it's all been funding just odd jobs here and there. So the film Robin Hood Complex is out there now for anybody to tap in through Vimeo and go and see what you actually managed to do. For me, the really sort of the piece that I sort of gripped on was the fact of you deploying into a war zone, meeting with people that you had never come across before, and to see you without that weapon, but with the knowledge that you have from the forces that you've gained through your years of experience in the Marines. How did that make you feel, sort of going into a combat zone without any protection for yourself, and literally surrounded by many people that have no experience of that? Yeah, that's a good point, and many people say it to me. I've done 3 tours of Afghanistan, 1 of Iraq, and when you don't realise when you're in the Royal Marines the standards and the quality of the calibre of men that you're working with. And so when I actually go out there and I'm on the front line with these guys with little experience, the local forces that don't have much knowledge of what they're doing, especially tactics, and I'm sat there thinking, oh, what am I doing here with a camera rather than the weapons? And penny dropped several times when I've been in several ambushes, we've been in mortar strikes, and I sat there going, what am I doing? Sat here with this bit of equipment rather than a rifle. The good thing about having a camera is when you get shot at, you haven't got to put your head above the parapet. So you can selfie stick on your mobile phone. I remember I was in one ambush with a selfie stick, just putting it up, the camera there. Other times it's just like, why am I here? But throughout my tours in the Marines, and don't get me wrong, I'm proud to serve the Corps, my country and everything else, but I think I've now discovered a camera is more powerful than a rifle in changing people's opinions. You can go all day long killing people. I think it's knowledge, understanding that the camera is far more powerful. So that's why I got to a stage where I thought, okay, I could have a rifle here, and what's going to happen? I could shoot back. But really, telling the story through the lens is more powerful than actually going out there.
I think one of the interesting pieces that I sort of picked up within there is that initially it sort of sounded like all the guys that are going out there to volunteer, and many of them from many different backgrounds and different nations, I think they initially went out there in the thought that they were going to fight. Yeah. Now, for the majority of them, they never really had that opportunity, because a lot of them were used in a sort of support mechanism through training and stuff like that. So, you know, was there a sort of a bit of a letdown for some of the volunteers that they couldn't go to the front line and fight alongside? And one of the reasons being, as you mentioned when you went into Mosul, was that the Iraqi forces didn't want the support of the volunteers until the coalition forces were going to support them in their advance. So that was an interesting piece. So I wonder what was the frustrations for those individuals that went out there, that they couldn't go forward and fight.
Yeah, totally. You're totally right. What you're saying there is the YPG are the Kurds that fight in Syria, and the Peshmerga are the Kurds that fight in Iraq.
Right.
So the difference is some of the volunteers will join the YPG in Syria, and some will go into Iraq. There was more action going on in the Syrian YPG because they're more of a militia group than the Peshmerga, which are a government force. They are the official military. So the ones who joined the Peshmerga, which I concentrated mainly on for the documentary, is they joined the Peshmerga, so they were part of the Peshmerga, they got ID cards, they were soldiers of Peshmerga, which means one who faces death.
Yes, absolutely. I saw that, yeah.
So a lot of the generals will turn up and go, okay, there's white men are here. So all these guys, you got experience in the forces. Some of them would lie about their experience. Others didn't have no experience. And like, okay, cool, follow me. And generals were going around and they'll have 4 or 5 white men following them. And before you know it, they've got a CP team of Westerners. So it was a golden toy for a lot of these generals. So the guys were involved. Some of the guys were involved in contacts. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not, but they were very disheartened the amount of fighting. Yeah. Because a lot of these groups, especially the group I met here in Devon, thought they're literally going to go out there and they're going to be leading attacks. They're going to be the spearhead, but it didn't work out for them.
And interestingly, was the which I wasn't aware of, but some of the guys that did come back were arrested for sort of terrorism, and then some of that comes down to who they were actually with and what they were fighting. If you joined the PKK, then you would be on the terrorist watch list, as opposed to the guys that were joining the Peshmerga. And interestingly, they were saying that when they were trying to get out there, they would say that they were going on a humanitarian mission so that they could be allowed to go forward. And what was the cost to them as individuals? I saw them go to, when you went to the market in Erbil, and they were buying their equipment, they're buying their weapons, they're buying their, what it was they were wearing on the ground. What cost was that to them?
Everything. All these volunteers are self-funded, same as myself. They don't get funding from the Peshmerga or the YPG at all. Some of them will be given the weapons, but some of them will go buy their own equipment. Some of them will take their own equipment out, but it'll be limited because obviously...
Because of what they could carry.
Yeah, so guys who were joining Islamic State would go through Turkey, go through southern Turkey into Syria, they go into Iraq. The volunteers would fly into Turkey or go via Germany, connect and fly into Erbil, Suleimania in northern Iraq, and then go into Syria or stay in northern Iraq that way. So it was all self-funded for these guys. They'll go out there. The network out there, they like Western volunteers coming. So the Kurds will be happy, like you see in the documentary in the market. The guys I give them discount. This is $10, this is $10, everything $10. But so they enjoy these. It's like, even though your Western forces aren't here per se fighting, these volunteers are. So there's a lot of stigma around these guys within the kudos kind of the locals.
One of the big things that gripped me was the diversity of the guys that were going out there. For instance, Jim being a 52, 54-year-old grandfather, father of 2, from up in the sort of northern parts of the UK, and then you'd have Mike, for instance, who was former Foreign Legion and a dance instructor and a Muay Thai teacher in Thailand. I mean, what was the common denominator that you felt why those guys wanted to do what they were doing?
Every single volunteer would say to me they're out there fighting for humanity against evil.
Yeah.
And they are, but when you break it down and you look underneath the surface, they've all got their own individual reasons for being there. John, the Canadian who dies in the documentary, he was there because he missed action. He was in the military, he never served in Afghanistan, so it's like many veterans who don't serve and they feel like this is their need, it's their time, and unfortunately John died. You've got other guys who, like Jim for example, who never really had done anything in his life that he's content with, so they feel this is their opportunity. So I wouldn't say they're there for selfish reasons, but they're there for underlying issues. They're there for their own reason to prove something to their family, their self, or like Mike, he's an adventurer. One minute he's Foreign Legion, he's working in the city of London, then he's a dance teacher, then he's a kickboxer, Muay Thai in Thailand, now he's fighting ISIS, and now he's back dancing again. So everyone's got their own different reasons for being there, and I wouldn't say there's one particular bracket you put them in, so it's quite varied, but like you're saying, the contrast between the 54-year-old man who's never been in the armed forces to the young 22-year-old that served in the army or was in Afghanistan, or even Costa who died
absolutely. I saw the interview with the parents, and for those of you that sort of go in and take a look at the Robin Hood complex, I think you'll find it quite intriguing, the different stories that are in there and the different caliber of individuals that sort of have gone out to support. It's not something that many of us can imagine doing, but in a way our sort of hearts are with them because what they are trying to achieve. There was other sort of stories in there as well of some of the guys doing it, totally for their own reason. The ex-guy there from the army that sort of spoke, who was very sort of embraced by the people that he was working with. But there was some adverse sort of communication about him through Facebook and stuff like that. Do you think as individuals, they were making a difference? Even if just they raised the morale, I suppose, of the people up there?
The best thing about the volunteers, I'd say, is they were a voice for the Kurdish people. Is even if they haven't gone out so much and killed as many ISIS fighters as they wanted, they brought awareness to a cause. Especially through this documentary, through the headlines, through news reports, they have brought awareness to a war that a lot of people wouldn't really understand, that the Kurds were leading this war against Islamic State. And throughout time, like yourself in '91 when you went to support the Kurds, they've always been forgotten about, but have been very loyal to the West. And even now, the fight against Islamic State, if it wasn't for the Kurdish people, Islamic State would be a lot bigger than what they were. And if it weren't for these volunteers, the knowledge and information would be out there.
I think as well for a lot of them that I picked up within the film was that the persecution of the Yazidis and that massacre of sort of up to 5,000 people up in the mountains, and the way that they were exploiting the women that they had taken and using them for their own gain is quite a compelling but extremely troubling sort of experience to see as well. But the character in there, one of the characters that really stood out to me was Doc, and I picked up on there that he was out there trying to provide medical support, but I didn't pick up at all that he had any medical qualifications, and his story is probably quite unique, and I think he lost an eye later on.
I've got a lot of time with Doc. I really like Doc. I speak to all the volunteers now. I'm still good friends with them all. But Doc's a unique character, very unique in the fact is that he'd done his fighting time on the front line. He's never a soldier. No. He then he's very medical orientated, hence Doc, the nickname Doc. He does have medical knowledge. He had some medical training back in the States, but he was never a fully qualified doctor. And in the end, he got his wish of going to the hospital, setting up this practice. So you, in a sense that you could say, if you were a medical professional, go, how's this guy working in a hospital? But he did do good. He did help a lot of people. But where's the line? Where do you draw the line on? Is he allowed to, or is it morally right? And that's not, throughout the whole documentary, it wasn't my place to ever judge these guys to say, I'm an ex-Marine, I've got this knowledge, what are you doing here? It was them to tell their story. And I think it's good that the audience can actually, like yourself there, seeing these characters like Doc and go, actually, what is his story? I leave it up to you to decide if you like these characters or don't like these characters. They're all brilliant characters, they're brilliant guides, but they're very interesting across the board.
Yeah, it was, like I said, an extremely interesting film. Very moving part when Mike was sort of taking that patrol up through the valleys there, and you came across the remains of what I'm guessing was probably a Yazidi individual or somebody that was massacred, but they paid tribute by, burying the only way that they could. But again, going on that patrol that you went out with, as you said, no communication, no sort of mapping and no real support with just a 6-man team going out. That must have been, quite challenging for you, and probably even in your, like I said, with your experience, that you probably want to intervene at points and try and provide advice. And I know you did that with some of the training for some of the guys with weapons that they were given to use that they probably didn't have that experience to use.
I've kept my hands off weapons. I'm not there, like say, with a camera. I'm there solely as an observer. And a lot of journalists I met throughout my travels and documentary filmmakers, some of them didn't get it, that they are there to observe what's going on. They're not there to intervene. And being an ex-Marine and being in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you see the media coming, and it's like you want the media away while you carry on.
Doing your job.
So I tried to be external and try to be the fly on the wall, just watching them go. But there was times where, like the Mike, that patrol would literally turn up and they're like, we're going out in 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, any chance I could have a wet first? So it was very quick. I was like, how many maps you got? None. Where are we going? I don't really know. Who's going up that way? How many of you going? 4 of us plus 2 local guys. So it's like, hold on a second. What's your evac plan? What is your actions on? What is the procedure here? What are things you take for granted in the armed forces? And don't get me wrong, many times in Afghanistan you've got QRF tasks, you're going out very quickly, but you've got that support. If you get in the ship, you've got a radio and you have a helicopter that's going to come in, you're going to have fast jets coming in. These guys are literally on their own with 60 rounds sometimes. And it's like, so if you get into a firefight, we're pretty much...
Did you see any sort of battle, rhythm before the guys were deploying in any shape or form? Planning and preparation orders or anything like that?
The thing is, they were hindered from going out on these patrols. So the moment I turn up, it was, for them, it was a unique moment. They're like, bang, we've got orders, we've got permission to go out. So it was quite unique to go out with them. When we were on the objective, they were there talking, and there was supposed to be an airstrike that had gone in. So they were asking me for my opinion about, what do you think, has an airstrike hit that target? And I'm looking at it through binos going, that has not been hit. And they're like, okay, so because a lot of the volunteers know about my background, they'll ask me questions, they'll ask for my advice and everything else. But I was trying to be totally distant from them, which is quite hard because I care about these guys. I don't want any trouble to happen. I don't want to get in any danger. So in a way, if I can help them out, I would. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I carried a camera, I didn't carry a weapon, but if the shit hit the fan, like any bloke, I would have picked up a weapon to fight, and that is simple as that.
Of course.
I was quite hands-on. I was speaking on Channel 4 about this, and they said, have you ever touched any weapons? I was like, no, but if I had to, in life and death,
self-preservation,
I would. Totally, inherent right to self-defence. So yeah, but luckily, there was one time I had to pick up an AK when I was, I said no, I never touched a weapon, but that's a lie actually. I was in a taxi in Kirkuk, on my own, driving around, and I was trying to get back to the city, and we picked up a soldier who was going back on his R&R, and we're driving around Kirkuk, and Kirkuk's quite a dangerous city, and the taxi driver was lost. This guy didn't know where he was going, so they both got out of the car, and he left his AK in the front, and then there was a soldier, an Iraqi soldier, who came to the taxi, saw me, went back. He had a pistol, got his AK, got on his phone, he was pointing at the car. So I was like, okay, this looks a bit dodgy. So I just got the AK, put it on my lap, made sure it was made ready, had it there. Told him, get in the car, and I said to the taxi driver, right, take a left, take a right, get us out of this part of the city. And then once we're out, I gave him back his AK. But yeah, overall, no. There's been no situations other than that. But yeah, it's been dodgy moments.
So as the film is out there for people to see now, what are you hoping that the film will actually achieve?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. I want it to bring awareness to the cause. So I want it to be. I didn't want it to be about gun battles.
No,
I've got over 60 hours of footage for a documentary that's 82 minutes long. So it's hard to work out what I'm going to put in it. I want it to be about the humanisation of these people.
Yeah.
Same as when you're in the military, is people look at a soldier or a marine or sailor and they go, oh, they see a uniform. What they don't understand is the humanisation, who that person is behind that weapon. So I want this documentary to show people who these individuals are, Why does Jim want to go fight? Why does Mike want to be there? What's Doc's reason for being there? What's Steve's reason? So it was about the humanisation of these guys. So I want to bring awareness to the Kurdish cause. And I don't want to get political over it, but the Kurds are people that need support from the West, and we're seeing what's going on in Syria with the Turks at the moment. They're being forgotten about again. So it's bringing awareness to a cause and humanising a war.
Well, I think you did that extremely well. I mean, because absolutely throughout, you know, categorically, it was about those people that were supporting and about the what the Kurdish people have been up against in their support. So, you know, I commend you, Emile, for all you've done on that. You know, it's a wonderful story. Do you think that it will be possibly a catalyst that will encourage more people to go, or do you think it could actually deter people from going that were thinking that they were going to go out there and fight and support?
Yeah. If I had £1 for every time I had a message from someone on Facebook asking how'd you get out there to fight, I would probably be very rich and I'd be the best recruitment agency around. I think because of the defeat of the caliphate in Iraq and Syria, that men aren't going to be going out there anymore. The Peshmerga and YPG don't particularly want them now because what's going on. So there will still be people that want to fulfil their needs to go out there. So people will still travel to that region, but they won't be fighting like they were.
And what about the guys that you probably met out there that you and I know have been in combat? Do you think some of them still crave that? And people will find this hard, you know, the adrenaline buzz, the camaraderie, the fellowship, and that sort of excitement of being in that sort of place. Yeah,
totally. I think anyone who's been on operations in the military knows that when you're in these environments, it's easy to hide from the real problems of the world.
Sure.
You haven't got to open your letters. You haven't got to speak to the girlfriend or the wife if you don't want to, or the husband. You're detached from the world. Yeah. So these guys, the volunteers, are very much exactly the same. They're there in that environment. They can forget about the world, and they miss it. When we all do, we all come out from operations, go, oh, life's easier when I'm getting shot at, because all I need to do is eat in the morning, get up, do my patrols, and just carry out my day. So it's an easy place to hide for these guys, and they all crave it because they come back to reality where they've got to find jobs, which some of them struggle to find, and many guys, ex-veterans or veterans, struggle to find jobs. So it is an easy place to hide. So everyone craves going back. If someone says to me, oh, do you want to go back to Sangin tomorrow? I'll be like, yeah. Because I know it's easier being in Sangin than being in the real world.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's that sort of guys that find the transition from military life into civilian life difficult, and they go back to that default setting. Yeah. But what I can say to all the audience there in the channel is that, you know, I commend what Emile's been out and done, and I would, you know, ask all of you to take a look at the Robin Hood complex, and you'll build your own sort of thoughts on what Emile's achieved. It's a unique story, mate, and I want to thank you for your time and sharing your experience, and I wish you all the very best for your next project, mate. So thank you ever so much. Cheers.